The Secretary of Defense made a big announcement yesterday. Take a look. Mattis, U.S. to send 3,000 more troops to Afghanistan. So that'll bring the total to over 14,000 troops we now have in Afghanistan. When you look at all of our interventions, we have Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia. Some of the places where we're doing interventions are just drone strikes. Other ones are traditional airstrikes with fighter jets. Other ones are full-out ground invasions. We, of course, have 900 military bases around the world at a cost of $100 billion a year to maintain. And now we're doing something. This will fix it. This will fix Afghanistan. 3,000 more troops. And as they say, the 17th year's a charm. Well-known saying. It's not like Afghanistan is called the graveyard of empires. And it's not like there's a reason for calling it that. So, in total, we've spent $2 trillion and counting in Afghanistan. The war in Iraq, $7 trillion spent over there. By the way, our infrastructure gets a grade of D+ from the Society of Civil Engineers. Half the country makes $30,000 a year or less. It's not like we need those resources at home desperately. Oh, and by the way, at the same time that we get this announcement that we're sending 3,000 more soldiers to Afghanistan, look at this. This is from last night. Breaking. Senate overwhelmingly backs sweeping policy bill to pump $700 billion into the military. By the way, turn on the mainstream media. Not a single person, not one, said, "Whoa, how do we afford this? I'm not sure we have the money for this." You will get deficit scolds coming from every side of the political spectrum when anybody talks about free college, when anybody talks about Medicare for all, when anybody talks about any program for the people. You get people who think they're intellectuals coming out of the woodworks going, "Please, how can we afford this? There's no such thing as a free lunch." But pumping $700 billion into the military? People are like... Remember, there was the new F-35 fighter jet, that program since its inception. It's over $1 trillion that we've spent on that plane. And for the longest time, it didn't even fucking work. Now I think they got it to finally work. But it cost over $1 trillion making this shitty plane as if the other ones weren't good enough. And again, nobody says, hey man, maybe that's a fucking giant waste of money. Maybe this $700 billion is a giant waste of money. Maybe we should sit down and, hey, what are we still doing in all these wars? And when you ask people to find victory, they don't even bother to tell you anymore. Back when these wars started, they had to pretend to have some sort of end game and to have some sort of goal. So when you look at Iraq, they used to say, well, we got to get Saddam. I mean, that's what it's about. We got to get Saddam. So, well, guess what? Saddam's been dead for a long time now. And you're still in Iraq. So then don't insult our intelligence by pretending that was the point all along when you achieved that goal and now we've still been there for years and years and years. Same thing with Afghanistan. Well, we got to get bin Laden. I mean, what do you want to do? Bin Laden attacked us on 9/11. He's in Afghanistan. He was at the time. So let's go get him. Okay, well, he's been dead for a while now too. But we're still in Afghanistan. And you just keep moving the goalposts. Just keep moving them. So it went from, and they moved the goalposts at the beginning for the justification for the wars, because first it was Saddam did 9/11 in the case of Iraq. Then it was Saddam has weapons of mass destruction. He didn't. And then finally the end justification was he's a bad guy. Yeah, there's a lot of bad guy leaders around the world. Should we invade them all and topple them all? So let's just quit the bullshit and just say what it's all really about. Because it's clearly not about the shit you say it's about. Because again, they don't even have anything like if you ask them, hey, why are we still in Afghanistan now? There's nothing to say. Well, Taliban or something. Well, that was not the original reason, so you keep changing the reason. It was get bin Laden, then it was get al-Qaeda. There is no more al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, and now it's the Taliban. Well, the Taliban's always been there, and they're a guerrilla army, and they control 40% of the fucking country. So that is a justification for endless war. That's all that is. And it just so happens that, hey, when you look in Iraq, tremendous amount of oil wealth there, and the oil production increased after we invaded. So maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe in Afghanistan, the minerals have something to do with it. Opium has something to do with it. Now, you bring that part up, all of a sudden people say, oh, that's Alex Jonesy. But what the fuck else can describe what we're doing when the original justifications have been utterly destroyed because they've been achieved, but we're still there? So what the fuck else can explain it? Well, you gotta get the radical Islamic terrorists. Saudi Arabia is the powerhouse and the factory of radical Islamic terrorists. And they're one of our best friends. So it's obviously not that either. And they're wasting lives and our money. They take your tax money and my tax money and they waste it over there. And again, we don't even have universal health care here. We don't even have universal health care. And we're wasting all this money over there. And then they have the nerve to tell us we can't afford basic things that every other modern nation affords. It's beyond disgusting. And remember, Donald Trump was the guy who said repeatedly, we went over one time every comment he made on Afghanistan. And for the longest time, he was vehemently against it. He was as against it as I'm against staying in Afghanistan. He called it stupid. I mean, we went through the list. Well, now all of a sudden, you know, the deep state is whispering in his ear. The generals, Mr. President, we have to stay there. By the way, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So you go back through American history, the generals always have the same answer: more war. What do you think happened in Vietnam? They kept telling Lyndon Johnson, oh, we just need more troops. That's all we need, and then everything will be good. But what's the end goal? What's victory? Well, I don't know. We just need more troops. They just kept saying more troops, more troops, more troops. It's the same fucking thing now. Whether it's the neocons in the deep state, it's the CIA, it's the generals. So more troops, more troops. What the fuck is 3,000 more troops going to accomplish when you won't even tell us what the definition of victory is? You won't even tell us. There are people who are pretty old today. Old as in, you know, relatively speaking. So the war in Afghanistan started in 2001. It's 2017. So there are 16-year-olds who have known nothing but the United States at war. To them, war is just the most regular thing ever. Like, what do you mean? Of course, we're always at war. Duh. Is that the kind of country we want to be? That's the kind of country we want to be. Where 45,000 people die every year in the U.S. because they don't have access to basic health care. But we have money for endless war that is meaningless and has no aim. That's the country we want to be? I don't think... One thing people are very bad at, especially if they're embedded in that elite establishment bubble, is objective thinking. And when you look at what the United States is doing through a historical lens, it's hard to avoid the conclusion that we're just like every other gigantic empire ever, that's ever been. We have selfish motives. We're trying to maintain being the world's #1 superpower and only superpower. We're trying to keep our hand on the natural resources all around the world. Our justifications have become weaker and weaker for all of our militarism and imperialism. And the people, the neocons and the generals and the hawks, they do not realize how universally despised they are, not just around the world, but also among the people in the United States of America. So they're incapable of objective thinking to realize that you are the biggest threat to world peace. We have the most powerful military that's ever existed, and we keep fucking invading everybody and killing people. And that's not just me speaking. There's been various polls on this from well-respected polling organizations. So you can't accuse them of some sort of bias or, fudging the numbers here. You ask people all around the world, hey, which country is the biggest threat to world peace? People don't say North Korea. They don't say India or Pakistan. They don't say Russia. They don't say Saudi Arabia. They don't say Israel. They say the United States of America. Now, we could either dismiss that in our smug, idiotic arrogance, or we could say, damn, something's really wrong here, and we could try to fix it. It's so frustrating to do these segments because all the points are almost so obvious to make that it's hard to even make them. Because you just have to run through all of them over and over. But here we are again. Another 3,000 troops to Afghanistan. Another situation where there's no end in sight. We have so many problems here at home. We're wasting money and resources over there. And nobody in the mainstream media is talking about this in a serious way. Nobody's saying, how do we afford this? Nobody's saying, what's the definition of victory? If corporate media was not basically an arm of the government, they would have asked all these questions on day one. They would say, whoa, what's going on here? What's going on here? They would have asked these questions a year into the war, 2 years into the war. This fucking thing started in 2001 and it's 2017. And you still don't get the most basic questions. There's going to be more coverage of Donald Trump's shitty joke tweet where it's a gif where he's hitting a golf ball at Hillary Clinton. There's more coverage of that than there is at the fact that we just prolonged an endless war again and we're wasting trillions of dollars and lives in the process. That says just about everything, and it's fucking sickening.